They dropped him into a predator zone until he walked out carrying the beast they feared. Then they stopped treating survival training as routine assessment and started questioning whether humans should be allowed near wildlife at all. Let me tell you about the day I learned that dropping a human into a death zone is like throwing a match into a room and hoping it illuminates the darkness instead of burning down the building. Spoiler alert, you get both outcomes simultaneously, and the human apologizes for the property damage while offering to rebuild everything better than it was before. My name is Greshik Torn, Senior Wilderness Survival Instructor for the Galactic Ranger Corps, and I have trained planetary survival specialists for 29 standard cycles. I have designed assessment protocols for 83 different hostile environments, supervised over 4,000 survival evaluations, and personally survived encounters with apex predators from 31 different ecosystems. Point is, I know dangerous environments. I understand predator behavior, what separates survivors from casualties, what skills matter when technology fails and you're alone with nature trying to kill you. I can assess someone's survival capability within hours of observation and predict with 94% accuracy whether they'll pass qualification standards. Until the human. The assessment was standard protocol for Ranger Corps certification. Candidates must demonstrate ability to survive 72 hours in a hostile environment with minimal equipment, no communication devices, and no extraction options except completing the course. We used Kethrak 4 for senior-level assessments, a jungle world with aggressive fauna, toxic flora, extreme weather variations, and approximately 40 different things that could kill an unprepared explorer. The predator zone was a 50 square kilometer section of old-growth forest where we had documented presence of Velcara, apex predators that stood 3 meters at the shoulder, massed approximately 600 kilograms, and hunted with pack coordination that made them devastatingly effective killers. They had sensory capabilities across multiple spectrums, natural armor plating that could deflect small arms fire, and territorial instincts that made them extremely aggressive toward intruders. Standard protocol required candidates to avoid predator zones entirely. The assessment tested survival skills, not combat capability, and engaging a Velcara pack was suicide for any individual regardless of training or equipment. We specifically briefed candidates on predator zone boundaries, warned them that entering those areas meant automatic assessment failure and emergency extraction, emphasized that discretion and avoidance were valued survival traits. Do not engage predators, I told each candidate group during final briefing. Your objective is survival, not heroics. Apex predators in this ecosystem have killed trained hunters with superior weapons and numerical advantage. You have basic survival gear and 3 days to reach the extraction point. Avoid predator territories, travel carefully, stay alive. Simple objectives. Most candidates followed instructions. They navigated around predator zones, used appropriate caution, demonstrated sensible risk management. The assessment had 87% pass rate because it tested practical survival skills rather than requiring impossible heroics. Then there was Corporal James Rodriguez, and I should have known from his preliminary interviews that he would be a problem. Corporal Rodriguez, I said during his individual briefing. Your file indicates extensive wilderness experience on Earth, including survival training in multiple hostile environments. That's excellent preparation. However, Earth ecosystems, while challenging, are rated significantly less dangerous than Kethrak 4. Do not let overconfidence compromise your judgment, understood, sir, Rodriguez said. He was average size for a human, maybe 178 centimeters, muscular build that suggested regular physical training, with dark hair, brown skin, and these brown eyes that seemed to assess everything with casual interest. I've read the briefing materials. Avoid predators, reach extraction, don't do anything stupid, exactly. The Velcara in particular are not to be approached under any circumstances. They're considerably larger and more dangerous than any Earth predator you might have encountered, got it? Stay away from the giant murder cats, they're not felines, they're more closely related to. I stopped, realizing taxonomy wasn't the point. Just avoid them completely, will do, sir, Rodriguez said, but something about his tone made me wonder if he was actually listening or just agreeing to end the briefing. We dropped 6 candidates into different entry points within the assessment zone at dawn. Standard equipment for each: basic survival knife, fire starting kit, water purification tablets, emergency medical supplies, and a distress beacon that would trigger extraction if activated. No food, no weapons beyond the knife, no communication devices. 72 hours to reach the extraction point 40 kilometers away through hostile jungle. I monitored from base camp with my assistant instructor, Falek, a Vraxian with excellent tactical assessment skills. We had tracking devices on each candidate, not for their use but for our monitoring, allowing us to ensure nobody was in immediate danger or heading toward situations beyond their capability. Candidates 1 through 5 are proceeding normally, Falek reported 6 hours into the assessment. Standard pace, appropriate caution, good route selection. Candidate 6, Rodriguez, is moving significantly faster than recommended. I pulled up Rodriguez's tracker. He had covered 12 kilometers in 6 hours, nearly triple the recommended pace for hostile jungle terrain. He's going to exhaust himself, I said. Notify me if his pace doesn't moderate. Overexertion is a common failure mode for candidates with military backgrounds who treat this like a physical fitness test instead of a survival exercise. We'll monitor closely, Falek confirmed. Hour 8, Rodriguez had covered 18 kilometers and was maintaining the aggressive pace despite jungle heat and difficult terrain. His route was also concerning. Instead of taking the longer but safer path around the predator zone, he was heading straight toward the territorial boundary. That's problematic, I said, watching his tracker approach the zone markers we had specifically warned candidates to avoid. Prepare for communication. If he crosses into predator territory, we extract immediately. He stopped, Falek said. Right at the boundary line. Checking something, maybe consulting his map. Rodriguez's tracker remained stationary for approximately 15 minutes, then started moving again. Not away from the predator zone as hoped, but directly into it, following a path that would take him straight through the heart of Velkara territory. That's assessment failure, I said, activating emergency communication protocols. Rodriguez, this is Instructor Torn. You have entered a restricted predator zone. Reverse course immediately or activate your distress beacon for extraction. No response. Rodriguez's tracker continued deeper into the predator zone. Communication systems are functioning, Falek confirmed. He's receiving the message but not responding. Then we extract him, I said, initiating emergency protocols. Prepare the aerial unit for immediate deployment. I'm not losing a candidate because he decided to ignore direct orders. The extraction unit launched within 3 minutes, a rapid response vehicle designed for quick personnel recovery in hostile environments. It reached Rodriguez's last known position in 8 minutes. The pilot reported back with confusion in his voice. Instructor Torn, we've located the candidate. He's not in distress. He appears to be tracking something. Tracking what? I demanded. Based on the prints he's following, I'd say a Velkara. Adult, probably 550 to 600 kilograms based on track size. Candidate is definitely pursuing it deliberately. That's insane. Order him to cease immediately and board for extraction. Sir, he's refusing extraction. Says he's, quote, almost there and doesn't need assistance. I took direct communication. Rodriguez, this is a direct order. You are tracking an apex predator that could kill you in seconds. Cease this activity immediately and board the extraction vehicle. Rodriguez's voice came back, slightly breathless but calm. Respectfully, sir, I'm good. I've been tracking for about 2 hours, and I'm close. Don't want to spook it now by bringing in loud aircraft. Can you give me like 30 minutes? 30 minutes for what? Rodriguez, you cannot hunt a Velkara with a survival knife. This is suicide, not assessment. I'm not hunting it, sir. I'm rescuing it. I looked at Falek, who made a gesture with her crystalline appendages that translated roughly as, I have no idea what the human is talking about. Rescuing it from what? I asked. There's some kind of parasite attached to its neck. Big thing, maybe 20 kilograms, looks like it's been draining blood for a while. The Velkara is weakened, moving slow, probably dying. I've been following it to see if I can help. You want to help a Velkara by removing a parasite while it's still conscious and capable of killing you? Well, I'm hoping it's weak enough that it won't put up too much fight. These things are endangered, right? Your briefing mentioned they're protected species. Seems wrong to just let it die from a parasite when I could help. I experienced a moment of complete cognitive disconnect. The human had entered a predator zone, tracked an apex predator for 2 hours through difficult jungle terrain, and was now planning to perform veterinary intervention on a creature that could disembowel him with one strike. Rodriguez, that animal is dangerous even when healthy. In a weakened, distressed state, it will be unpredictable and potentially more aggressive. You cannot approach it safely. Probably not, Rodriguez agreed. But I'm going to try anyway. If it goes badly, I'll activate the beacon. Just give me a chance to help, sir. I should have ordered the extraction team to physically retrieve him. Should have ended this insanity before it resulted in a fatality and mountains of incident reports explaining how I let a human get killed trying to rescue an apex predator. You have 30 minutes, I said instead, because apparently my judgment was compromised by morbid curiosity about what would happen next. If you're not extracted or deceased by then, we're coming in. Thank you, sir. I'll make it work. The next 30 minutes were the longest of my professional career. Rodriguez's tracker showed intermittent movement, presumably as he approached the Velcara carefully. We had video feed from the hovering extraction craft, but the jungle canopy was too dense for clear observation. Movement detected, Falek said, monitoring bioscanners. Definitely Velcara-sized, and another heat signature that matches human parameters. They're within 5 meters of each other. Get me visual, I ordered. I need to see what's happening. The extraction pilot maneuvered carefully, finding a gap in the canopy that provided partial view of the situation below. What we saw made no sense according to any rational understanding of predator behavior or appropriate survival tactics. Rodriguez had somehow gotten next to the Velcara, a massive creature that even weakened was clearly capable of killing him instantly. The parasite he had mentioned was visible, a grotesque organism the size of a large pack attached to the animal's neck, pulsing as it fed. And Rodriguez was talking to the Velcara, speaking in a low, calm voice while slowly reaching toward the parasite with his survival knife. Easy there, big guy. Rodriguez's voice came through the feed, picked up by the extraction craft's audio sensors. I know this is scary and you feel terrible, but I'm trying to help. This thing on your neck is killing you, and I'm going to remove it. Probably going to hurt, so please don't eat me in response. I'm one of the good guys. The Velcara made a low rumbling sound, not quite a growl, more like distressed vocalization. It was watching Rodriguez with visible wariness but hadn't attacked, which was unprecedented in documented human-Velcara interactions. I'm just going to cut around the attachment points, Rodriguez continued, his movements slow and deliberate. Try to keep still. This would be much easier if you were sedated, but I'm working with limited resources here. He began cutting carefully at the parasite's attachment site, and the Velcara flinched but didn't strike. Didn't flee. Just stood there, trembling with weakness or fear or both, while a human performed emergency veterinary surgery with a knife designed for cutting rope and preparing food. This is impossible, Falek said quietly. Velcara are aggressive apex predators. They don't permit approach from other species. They definitely don't allow physical contact from potential threats. Maybe it's too weak to respond normally, I suggested, but I didn't believe it. The animal was clearly aware and capable of movement. It was choosing not to attack, which suggested cognition and decision-making that we hadn't observed in Velcara behavior studies. Rodriguez worked for approximately 8 minutes, carefully cutting the parasite away from the Velcara's neck. When the organism finally detached, he threw it aside and immediately stepped back, giving the predator space. There you go, he said gently. That should feel better. The wounds will heal on their own, but you need to eat and rest. There's a stream about 200 meters that direction if you need water. The Velcara stood motionless for a long moment, regarding Rodriguez with those alien eyes. Then it did something that made my research instincts scream warnings about observation equipment malfunction. It approached Rodriguez, closing the distance the human had just created, and pressed its massive head against Rodriguez's chest. Not aggressively, but almost affectionately, like some kind of bonding gesture. You're welcome, big guy, Rodriguez said, and actually started scratching behind the creature's auditory organs like it was a domesticated companion animal instead of an apex predator. You're going to be fine. Just take it easy for a few days, okay? The Velcara made that rumbling sound again, but softer this time, almost contented. Then it turned and walked into the jungle, movement already stronger and more coordinated than it had shown in the video footage from earlier. Rodriguez watched it go, then looked up at the extraction craft hovering above. Okay, I'm ready for pickup now. Mission accomplished, right? I sat in stunned silence while Falek coordinated the extraction. Rodriguez was retrieved without incident, looking tired and dirty but remarkably pleased with himself despite having just violated approximately 15 different safety protocols. When he arrived back at base camp 2 hours later, I was waiting with disciplinary paperwork already prepared. Corporal Rodriguez, you deliberately entered a restricted predator zone against explicit orders, tracked and approached an apex predator, and performed unauthorized veterinary intervention on protected wildlife. Those are serious violations that normally result in assessment failure and potential removal from the Ranger Corps. Yes, sir, Rodriguez said, standing at attention. I understand. But sir, that Velcara was dying. The parasite would have killed it within days, and these animals are endangered. Felt like the right thing to do regardless of assessment outcomes. The right thing to do was follow orders and avoid predator zones entirely. Your actions were reckless and dangerous. Yes, sir. Also successful, sir. The Velcara survived and will probably recover fully. That's worth failing in assessment. I looked at him for a long moment, trying to understand the reasoning that led someone to risk their life for a creature that would have killed them without hesitation under normal circumstances. Why? I asked finally. Why risk everything for an animal that you had no obligation to help? Because it needed help, Rodriguez said simply. Because I had the skills to provide that help. Because letting something die when you can prevent it feels wrong, regardless of species or danger level. Earth taught humans to coexist with apex predators, sir. We learned that they're not just killing machines, they're intelligent beings deserving respect and assistance when needed. It could have killed you, yeah, probably. But it didn't. And now there's one more Velcara alive that would have been dead. That's a positive outcome. That's insane risk-benefit analysis, maybe, Rodriguez acknowledged. But it's also how humans are built, sir. We see something suffering, we try to help. Even when it's dangerous. Even when it's stupid. Even when it's against orders. We can't just walk away from things in pain. I set down the disciplinary paperwork, reached for a different form. I'm not failing you for this assessment. Rodriguez looked surprised. Sir. You demonstrated advanced tracking skills, wildlife behavior assessment, emergency veterinary knowledge, risk management under extreme conditions, and the kind of judgment that values life preservation over personal safety. Those are exactly the qualities we need in Ranger Corps personnel. I signed the assessment pass form. However, you're also getting a formal reprimand for failure to follow direct orders and unauthorized entry into restricted zones. That stays in your file permanently. Understood? Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. You're also giving a presentation to all future candidates about appropriate human-wildlife interaction protocols. Apparently, we need specific training on why approaching apex predators is normally a terrible idea, even when humans think they're helping. I can do that, sir. Rodriguez hesitated. Permission to ask a question. Granted. Are you going to tell people I walked out carrying a Velcara? Because I didn't actually carry it. It walked on its own after the parasite was removed. You're missing the point of the operational report, I said. The important detail isn't whether you literally carried the animal. It's that you entered the most dangerous zone in the assessment area, approached the apex predator everyone fears, and not only survived but improved the situation. That's the story that matters. Over the following weeks, Rodriguez's assessment became somewhat legendary within the Ranger Corps. Other instructors requested copies of the video footage, using it as training material to demonstrate both exceptional wildlife handling skills and extremely questionable decision-making, depending on which aspect of the incident they wanted to emphasize. 3 months later, I was leading another assessment group when we received unexpected reports from the predator zone. The Velcara pack that normally avoided human presence was showing unusual behavior, approaching assessment candidates peacefully, almost protectively, warning them away from dangerous areas rather than attacking. This is unprecedented, Falek said, reviewing the observations. Velcara have never shown protective behavior toward other species. They're strictly territorial and aggressive unless they're not, I said, watching footage of a massive Velcara, possibly the same individual Rodriguez had helped based on healing scars on its neck, gently herding a lost candidate away from a toxic plant colony toward safer terrain. Unless humans somehow convince them that we can be allies instead of threats, one incident shouldn't change an entire pack's behavior, Falek protested. Unless that one incident demonstrated something the pack had never seen before. Humans helping instead of hunting. Humans showing respect and compassion. Maybe Velcara are intelligent enough to recognize that and modify their behavior accordingly. I contacted Rodriguez, who was now serving with a planetary survey team in a different sector. Corporal, did you do anything else during your assessment that you didn't mention in your report? Any other interactions with the Velcara pack? Not really, sir, Rodriguez said. After I helped the one individual, I did see a few others watching from a distance. I waved at them, let them know I wasn't a threat. Why? Because they're now protecting human candidates instead of avoiding or attacking them. The entire pack's behavior has changed, Rodriguez said, sounding pleased. That's awesome. Velcara are supposed to be highly intelligent and social. Makes sense they'd remember someone helping a pack member and adjust their threat assessment of the species that provided help. You fundamentally altered the ecosystem dynamics of a protected wilderness area through unauthorized veterinary intervention, in a good way though, right? Now humans and Velcara can coexist peacefully. That seems like a positive outcome for everyone, I wanted to argue, wanted to explain all the ways that changing apex predator behavior created complications for wildlife management and assessment protocols. But watching the footage of Velcara carefully guiding candidates away from dangers, I couldn't deny that the outcome was objectively positive. Just try to follow orders in future assignments, I said. Even when you think you know better, I'll do my best, sir, Rodriguez said, in a tone that suggested his best would still involve considerable improvisation and questionable judgment calls. 5 years later, I retired from active instruction and took a position with Galactic Wildlife Services, consulting on human-wildlife interaction protocols. The work required extensive travel to worlds where human presence was creating new challenges for existing ecosystems. On Kethrak 4, I visited the original assessment area where Rodriguez had helped the Velcara. The predator zone was now officially redesignated as a cooperative wildlife sanctuary, with Velcara serving as voluntary guardians for human researchers studying the jungle ecosystem. The pack had grown significantly, no longer losing members to parasites and other preventable problems because human veterinarians now provided regular health monitoring and intervention with the Velcara's full cooperation. It's remarkable, said Dr. Sarah Chen, the lead xenobiologist managing the sanctuary. We have apex predators voluntarily participating in conservation efforts, accepting medical treatment, even helping us track and study other species. The cooperative relationship started with one human's decision to help an injured animal, and it's evolved into something unprecedented. That one human violated multiple safety protocols and almost got himself killed, I pointed out. True, Chen acknowledged. But he also demonstrated something important about human-wildlife relations. We don't have to dominate or fear apex predators. We can build partnerships based on mutual respect and benefit. That's a revolutionary concept in xenobiology. I watched a Velcara approach, the same individual Rodriguez had helped based on the distinctive scar pattern on its neck. It had survived, thrived, and apparently remembered the human who had saved its life. They remember, I said quietly. Individual humans, specific acts of help. That suggests cognitive complexity we hadn't documented in Velcara behavior studies. They're much more intelligent than initial assessments suggested, Chen confirmed. We've documented tool use, complex communication, even what appears to be cultural transmission of information across generations. The younger Velcara learn from adults that humans can be trusted partners. That's learned behavior, not instinct. The Velcara made that rumbling sound I remembered from Rodriguez's assessment video, the one that meant contentment rather than threat. It approached close enough to touch, then settled nearby in a posture that suggested comfortable familiarity with human presence. Does Rodriguez know about this? I asked. The sanctuary, the cooperative relationship, all of it. We send him regular updates, Chen said. He visits when his assignment schedule allows. The Velcara recognize him specifically, treat him differently than other humans. He's like honored family member to the pack. That's insane, that's humanity, Chen corrected. They form bonds across species barriers that shouldn't exist. They see opportunities for cooperation where everyone else sees only danger or competition. And somehow it works, because predators are intelligent enough to recognize genuine friendship when it's offered. They dropped him into a predator zone until he walked out having befriended the beast they feared. Then they learned that humans don't just survive hostile environments, they transform them into cooperative partnerships through stubborn insistence that apex predators deserve compassion instead of just avoidance. That's not survival training, that's a completely different approach to interspecies relations that treats every encounter as opportunity for alliance rather than conflict. And it works, somehow, despite violating every reasonable protocol about appropriate wildlife interaction. My name is Greshik Torn, and I used to think survival meant avoiding predators and minimizing risk. Now I understand that human survival includes befriending predators and maximizing cooperation, and that approach produces outcomes that traditional survival doctrine never anticipated. Because humans don't just survive alongside apex predators, they convince apex predators to become partners, guardians, allies in maintaining healthy ecosystems. they dropped him into a predator zone expecting him to demonstrate evasion and caution. Instead, he demonstrated compassion and veterinary skill, transforming the most dangerous area into the foundation for unprecedented interspecies cooperation. That's not what the assessment was designed to measure, but it's infinitely more valuable than any standard survival certification. Because any species can learn to avoid predators. Only humans apparently decide to rescue them instead, and somehow make that insane approach work better than centuries of careful avoidance ever did. That's not a bug in human survival instincts, that's the core feature that makes them uniquely suited for roles requiring creative problem-solving and relationship building in hostile environments. And it's why I now recommend humans specifically for wildlife management positions, despite them being the species most likely to violate safety protocols by attempting to befriend things that could kill them. Because sometimes the best way to handle apex predators is having someone who sees them as potential friends rather than inevitable threats, and humans excel at that particular form of completely unhinged optimism about interspecies relations.